I just watched season 4 of The Witcher and holy fucking shit. Netflix's The Witcher has been a hot topic for fans for over 5 years now. But with season 4, it feels like they finally put a definitive end to all the debates. With all the buzz, I figured I'd grab a slice of this high pie and share my 2 cents on this universe that's so dear to me. I am not a professional critic, but in today's video I'm gonna prove why Netflix's The Witcher is a fucking brutal no-lube rape of the fans' feelings and an unwatchable piece of garbage made for money laundering. Oh, and spoilers ahead, so you've been warned. Grab your popcorn and swallow potion, cause we're starting.
Racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, xenophobia, anti-Semitism.
Let's start with the obvious, Henry Cavill dishing the show. Yeah, he was the 100% book-accurate Geralt. For a book-accurate monster hunter beaten down by life, who sometimes have to starve and sleep in a ditch because he's broke, he was a bit too well-groomed. But goddamned, he nailed the role. As a genuine book fan who was passionate about the character, he put in the work to become the cynical yet fair mutant Witcher. His gestures, his walk, his facial expressions, his voice, the signature dry humor.
Brought you apple juice.
It was all top notch, and the Blaviken massacre scene showed that despite his size, this big guy is no clumsy oaf. He can move with serious speed and agility. Let's not forget that by joining this mess and staking his reputation on it, he was a major selling point for the show. He was essentially the heart and soul of this series, and his leaving was a massive blow. Stepping into his shoes is Liam Hemsworth, Thor's brother from the MCU, who just doesn't fit the role and looks unconvincing as hell, and because of that, he couldn't carry the weight. Just look at his face. He's got the typical kind-looking Hollywood face for a grizzled hardened monster hunter. A twinkle in his eye, smile lines. Meanwhile, Cavill's Witcher has the pain of the entire universe written all over his face. But don't go bullying Liam for this. The guy, on the top of working with a shitty script and even shittier showrunner, had to take over a leading role midstream in a project that was already falling apart at the seams. So him replacing Henry is a symptom, not the cause of the disease that killed the show. For me, the perfect actor for Geralt would have been Nikolai Coster-Waldau. The tall and lean Jaime Lannister would have been perfect, especially since Game of Thrones showed he can handle the role of a battered and dirty warrior. Second, more deviations from the source material. I am not gonna nitpick every single plot part that's different from the book saga, cause we'd be here forever. Since season 2 and those ridiculous monoliths, the showrunner made it crystal clear. It ain't gonna be like the books. Deal with it. So I'll focus on the most interesting beats from season 4. King Radovid's transformation into a harsh and fierce king, it turns out wasn't due to his hatred for sorcerers, whose court intrigues got relatives killed. No, it was because he was fucking blue-balled. Are they seriously trying to convince us his iron will and tough demeanor were forged by emotional drama with the bard? Ooh, Jaskier, choose me or Geralt. Ooh, whatever, I'm but hurt, you don't love me. What is this weeny hysterical little bitch on the screen? Not to mention they made him gay. Why even make him gay and Jaskier bisexual? Their love arc has zero narrative purpose and doesn't move the plot or character development forward in any convincing way. It was done purely for woke points. And how about those sorceresses now brawling with cold steel? That's another progressive feminist checkbox with no logic, just like gay thing with Radovid and Jaskier. From the plot of earlier seasons, we know the sorceresses of the Northern Kingdoms can cast powerful spells with the snap of their fingers, and the strongest ones can wipe out entire armies with their hocus pocus. Why the hell would they ever need to pick up a heavy piece of metal with skills like that? Or did you want to show strong women in the literal sense? That's also necessary. Yennefer, for example, has already been through enough shit that makes her a strong woman by default. Besides these eye-gouging new additions, the show's very structure is fucked. Season 4 has several separate storylines, but unlike Game of Thrones, which The Witcher is trying to emulate, the main three barely intersect or form a cohesive picture. We basically have 3 separate shows stuffed into one, and Geralt of Rivia himself, whose job is literally the title of the show, feels more and more like a cameo in his own show with each season. If the writers wanted to make him a cool secondary character and focus the plot on the tough destinies of strong women like Ciri and Yennefer, then they should handle Geralt's storyline like Satoru Gojo from Jujutsu Kaisen. He chills off the screen and shows up at the right moment, solves all the villain problems with just a flick of his eyebrow, and then rides off into the sunset to play Gwent with the last coin. That would have made sense. But no! While Yennefer and her friends are trying to fight Vilgefortz of Mumbai, and Ciri is experimenting with sex, drugs and rock and roll to fix her mental state, Geralt is just doubly follows fake Ciri to Nilfgaard like a total sucker for most of the season. Another crap, the stupid death of Vesemir, the Vice Witcher mentor, the lack of signature humor, though the horseshoe scene was brilliant. Totally felt like the books. Empty dialogues that could have been cut to tighten the story, and the weak, impotent philosophy the original was famous for. The Witcher conveys ideas about moral ambiguity, explores themes of loneliness and finding your place in the world, about how people can be worse than any monster, about destiny. Netflix, where the fuck is all that? What's all this feminist bullshit? Sapkowski figured it all out talentedly almost 30 years ago. Just take the ready-made material and adapt it with minor changes. Why reinvent the wheel? Peter Jackson did just that with The Lord of the Rings back in the day. Fans still lose their minds over it 20 years later, and the trilogy scooped up 17 Oscars to boot. But apparently, Lauren as Hissage thinks she's smarter than everyone. What can I say? Everything is so bad that the trailer for the game gives viewers more feels than the entire show.
What are you doing?
Killing monsters.
Now, let's talk about the sweet stuff, miscasting. Season 4 introduced new characters, and they cast actors who completely break the immersion. And this isn't about racism, it's about the internal logic of the world. The action takes place in the Northern Kingdoms, an analog of medieval Eastern and Central Europe, with its harsh winters. White skin here is a result of evolution, for better synthesis of vitamin D, which is scarce in these climates. Where did all these black-skinned people in the background and among key characters come from, with skin adapted to blazing sun? This yanks the viewer right out of the reality. You wanna add black people? Fine, add them, but do it organically, as inhabitants of some southern lands with deserts and scorching sun. How hard is that? Besides, we've seen examples where a canonical white character was made black in an adaptation, like Nick Fury in the MCU. Did anyone throw a fit that Samuel L. Jackson did a bad job or looked out of place? I don't remember that, and it's cause of the right context. That stuff happens in the 21st century USA, not 14th century medieval Europe. Laurence Fishburne as Regis was brilliant. His character appears unexpectedly when all the heroes are stuck in a plot hole and saves their asses, a total gigachat problem solver. And his deep philosophical musings with others are very close to the original vibe about difficult choices and ambiguity, what's good and what's bad, spicing up the show's empty dialogues. But personally, I find it too hard to perceive an intelligent Nosferatu-like vampire alchemist with the appearance of Morpheus, who's about to say, Geralt, you take the blue pill, you take the red pill. It's even worse with Ciri's girlfriend. Besides the fact that Mistle comes off as an abusive character who shoos everyone away from her precious pussy named Falca, her appearance doesn't fit the canon nor the logic of what's happening. A noble woman of aristocratic blood from a northern country looks just like Maisie from Brawl Stars.
I'm the one you can
I'd go into more details, but considering the platform we're on, I think I'll keep my mouth shut. The next on the list, for which Netflix's The Witcher gets slapped, the colorful filter. The Witcher in the 90s was a real breakthrough in its genre, offering reader a new format of brutal and dark fantasy, with a place for dirt, blood, looting, rape, war crimes, sadism, etc. Before that, almost all fantasy, willingly or not, followed Tolkien's canon, with noble knights in shining armor, refined elves, and evil-obsessed orcs. The Witcher's color filter is too bright and saturated, like it's made of toys, and people love the Witcher universe for its dirty and realistic world. This looks not like the harsh Northern Kingdoms, but a family-friendly Zero-Plus cartoon. Nothing was told the production team for lowering the saturation, or did they need another 220 million for that, but more on that later. And I won't even mention Jaskier's musical and Regis's comic booky backstory. The atmosphere is just oozing, for fuck's sake.
As for what would fill my soul, a distraction, hobby, or a goal.
And since we are on the subject of presentation, we got to talk about the soundtrack, or rather, its absence. You recognize the tune from Breaking Bad or True Detective, no problem, but here there is nothing to recognize. The music is just there. In the first seasons, at least we had Toss a Coin to Your Witcher and Burn Witcher Burn. Season 4 is just a total void. And if you compare it to the game, it's just depressingly sad, no exaggeration. Any track from the game brings a whole lot of goosebumps, instantly knocking out the entire series soundtrack with one punch. Meanwhile, hiring a great composer didn't seem to be a problem. As it became known, they dumped almost 220 million into season 4, which is about 27 mil per episode. And the total budget for the whole series is already approaching $1 billion of those evergreen precedents. For context, the entire Game of Thrones cost about the same. And this isn't just about the music. They could easily hire talented proven actors who fit their roles and had normal sets and props. You haven't forgotten the Nilfgaardian armor that looked like a scrotum, right? For fuck's sake, they could just invited talented fans from Instagram and TikTok who work on developing the community. These people, sponsored by nothing but enthusiasm and love for the fandom, create amazing things. So, the conclusion that the show was made for good, old-fashioned money laundering just writes itself. But despite the sheer number of things Netflix fucked up, there are some genuine positives. We gotta give a special shout out to the charismatic Leo Bonhart, played by Charlotte Copley. And his fight scene with the rest, that's a masterpiece. The tension and drama, combined with absolute cruelty, appears so unexpectedly, it's hard to believe. A professional mercenary with sadistic tendencies brutally and mercilessly dispatches a bunch of teens, not leaving them a chance to survive and let alone die quickly and painlessly. There is no room for sentimentality here, only cold steel, blood and work. Even though Leo is technically a villain, the community sees him as a ray of light in the darkness, and fans are genuinely rooting for him more than for the main characters. Ironically, this is the actual atmosphere of The Witcher we've been missing all these years of them butchering the plot. So, what's the final verdict? It's a complete and utter failure that buried one of the most beloved universes for millions of people, from Polish Szczecin to Russian Vladivostok, under the rubble of a bad script and weird decisions. This was supposed to be the new cult fantasy series people would discuss for years, but with each season, hope dwindled, and season 4 hammered the final fucking nail into the project's coffin. The production team, for the first time, has consciously stepped on the same rake as the last 3 times. They just can't grasp the simple elementary idea that making a faithful book adaptation means recreating it with minimal changes that don't mess with the core structure. Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, Harry Potter, they all prove it. The main problems are still the feeling of overall emptiness and bluntness, the miscasting and the deviation from the canon, for which they couldn't come up with anything decent of their own. Even black and orange YouTube adaptations have more grip on the viewer than these expensive, meaningless, politically correct products. Sure, there are positive methods mentioned earlier, but they don't tip the scales at all. There are too few of them, which makes the rating massacre on Rotten Tomatoes totally expected. And it's unclear who they're even making these for anymore. Deviating from the canon pisses off book fans, and the soullessness of the project disgusts gamers. New viewers will have a hard time understanding what's going on, cause the first season was made as backwards with 3 different timelines that aren't even labeled with on-screen text like DMC5. And them not feeling the main vibe of the universe goes without saying. The same Game of Thrones The Witcher tries to emulate is a prime example of what happens when a book adaptation takes more and more liberties over time. But even with this mediocre ending, it's still steadily ranked among the best series 6 years after it's finished. Has The Witcher come close to that? Hell no! It's only guessed by parasitizing the famous name and the famous actor who once took part in this circus. And if you thought the nightmares were over and the calm after the storm was here, think again, no fucking way. The hopes of seeing a proper adaptation after this shit show ends are slim. It just so happens in the film industry that movies and series based on famous books aren't made every year. Look, they're remaking Harry Potter after almost 15 years. And that's still a big question mark on how it will turn out. So, if you figure the series isn't even over yet, then there will be a break of at least 10-15 years. A second chance to film The Witcher won't come for a very long time. So the fans' hopes of seeing a proper Witcher adaptation are melting like a snowman in March. Smash that like button for my suffering endured while watching this, or for the sake of making this video, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next video. And don't forget to comment that Charpak didn't like the series because he's a homophobe and a racist. See you soon, comrades!